All right, good morning. This is Lieutenant Colonel Hurd joining you guys this morning for our August 5th professional development session. And this morning we got it planned for, initially I think it was planned for like 2 hours, but I will tell you that even though we're going to be talking about technology here in a second, it was definitely not my friend that for a second. So hopefully you guys are on board there. I know we're still learning all these different capabilities and things. But if you can't hear me or if you're having some issues with it, if you guys would, if you shoot me a text message or something like that, and we'll work through the issues. But there again, like I said, the focus today is going to be on personalization of the learning process. And a lot of this you've probably already heard as you've been working with your individual schools and the different learning communities. But what I wanted to do was to sort of go back and review it from the perspective of not only the standards-based competency framework within Fulton County, but also, highlight some of the things that we're actually doing that are already within that context, and highlight some of the good things we're doing, and sort of reinforce some of the practices that we have ongoing. Yeah, this slide right here is the objective for this session. Essentially, I've talked about. I'll give you a second to read that. This is the overview in terms of the. Thank you. In terms of the overview, in terms of the agenda and the format that we'll follow for the sessions. But essentially, when we look at personalization of learning for our students, we can basically break it down into 3 elements, and those elements being personalized learning, technology, as well as the particular design that your school or your learning community chooses to use. And it sort of encapsulates that last slide in terms of what the overview is going to be talking about. But today we're looking at personalization. One of the things when you think about personalization, we can actually look at it from the perspective of an equation. That it's not just one isolated event and one isolated thing. It's actually a combination of several elements. And these 3 elements are reflected here, and they all result in high engagement and sustainable success for our students. So this is the equation that we'll be using to facilitate and guide us through the rest of the session. One of the things, we're in the middle of our 5-year strategic plan, and change is definitely constant. We're in the middle of our continuous improvement, ramp up with the JPA process for JROTC. But everything is focused on continuous improvement. And we might say, why is personalization or that equation, why do we think it might work? And here's some of the reasons that what the research points to. And I'll give you a second to look at that. One of the big things we can highlight is the fact that students have the opportunity to, experience learning, when and where they want it. Now with the advent of smart devices and all the other technological platforms that we have, kids can definitely access learning content on the go in the classroom or wherever they might be. The other thing about it, if you go down and you look at where we start talking about our environments, everything from our home where we have smart devices in the home, smart thermostats, even our vehicles that we drive, not only to the classroom, as well as how students themselves communicate and actually use the technology. So personalization works because there's interest there and there's actually application, and we all use it on a daily basis. So I won't belabor that in. So then we go into an actual definition for what personalization, personalized learning is. JROTC Convert. Yeah, check your email. I'm actually broadcasting right now. Okay, hold on. All right, back to where we were in terms of talking about personalized learning. What is personalized learning? This bullet actually throws up two of the important aspects about it, but based on a study that was performed at the University of Texas, it really points to the fact that people really like personalized, not only people, but we should say students, teachers as well. They like personalized learning primarily because it gives them a feeling of being more in control. They also have the opportunity to avoid, what most of us are always inundated with, that information overload. You get so much information, it comes from so many different sources. What's important and what's the priority, and how do you actually decipher and digest all that information. So when we look at personalizing learning for the personalization of learning for our students, really all we're talking about now is basically going in and meeting the students where they are. So we want to empower them basically so they feel control. They feel they have a control, and then we've actually had a positive effect on their individual psyche. So we want to go straight to the consumer and deal with them on their level. This is another quote that was actually came from George Woods, but the bottom line is he basically speaks to a lot of what I just said. I'll give you a second to look at this slide, but it just sort of starts to recite some of the same information in terms of what personalized learning is actually related to. And what I want to do on the next series of slides, and like I say, most of this is sort of giving you an overview of what's to come in the district. You may have heard of some of this information through your schools already, or you may have sat in on some professional development sessions within your learning communities. But what we're doing now is just sort of set up the framework, building a little foundation in terms of what personalized learning actually entails, and then we'll talk about the road forward. And in some of our later sessions, we can get into some of the more particulars in terms of actual strategies that we might actually use. But if we look at this particular slide here in terms of the comparison of individualized instruction and personalized instruction, the biggest part of it when you get in terms of measuring mastery as well as the teacher's role, as I'll have a follow-up slide here in a second, probably 2 or 3 slides later on. But one of the things it talks about personalized learning being student-centered, and that's exactly what JROTC is. We're performance-based, standards-based, student-centered program. And so we fall right in line with the personalized aspects of where we're actually driving our processes right now. This is another slide that sort of talks to the same thing. Just give you a second to look at it. Again, this session is actually being recorded. I'll actually have the slide deck available for you so you can go back and look at it. So if I'm actually going too fast, or if there's something you want to ask questions about later on, I'll actually open up questions later at the end of the session. But this particular slide does a great job of really showing what the difference is in terms of personalization and differentiation, as well as individualizations. Because a lot of times when we think just because we're differentiating the learning process that we're actually personalizing it. But as you can read from these bullets, you see that that's actually different, because the top line shows you where differentiation and individualization focuses on teacher-centered learning, as opposed to personalization that focuses on the learner themselves. Another key component I'd like to point out is that if you go down to the bottom bracket there, where you look at on the personalization, one of the key aspects there is the identification of the learning goals and setting benchmarks and measuring progress. That falls right in line with everything that we do within JROTC. Everything from providing student learning plans, requiring students to establish SMART goals each semester, as well as maintaining portfolios to measure their progress over their career within the JROTC program. So as you can see, I keep going back and forth on that, but really most of it's to paint a parallel to show you that we're actually already in line and doing a lot of the things that the district is actually moving towards. We just need to make sure that we frame it and put it in the context that we're talking with our peers and relating to them in the same fashion and talking in the same language that they're actually using as well. This slide is basically a lead into more of why we need to do personalization and why it's important and everything. But really, when you look at the current system, most folks consider it a cookie cutter type approach. One size fit all. Collective learning objectives for the entire class and group, as opposed to individualized, tailored instruction. It's actually differentiated for the individual needs of each student. Now you may be asking, well, what does personalized learning really require? What does it entail? If you look off on the left-hand side there, we sort of talked and addressed some of these things already, but when we talk about the continuous measurement based on a personalized learning path, that goes right back to the individual goals and the action plan that each cadet is required to develop on an annual basis. Dynamic instructional materials. We have the curriculum manager, as well as the advanced ed approved education, the award-winning curriculum, as well as the technology to support it. And then we talk about the increased educator effectiveness. This is part of that increase in effectiveness in terms of professional development, being involved with the learning communities, your various departments at your schools, as well as other initiatives throughout Cadet Command as we continue to push forward to try and prepare our students for college and career readiness within the 21st century. But as you'll see, all those different dimensions, as they add together, sort of push you in remembrance of that initial equation that I gave you, but it comes out to, or equals, personalized and connected learning environments. And as you'll see, as we get closer to the end of the slide, that's really what it's all about. Basically, helping students to set up and develop a personalized learning network that meets their individual wants and needs. Whether that be a combination of online instruction, or whether that be classroom instruction, peer-to-peer, or a variance of all of those. But as you can see, the outcomes or the outputs of this process, or the the circles to the right hand of the slide there. When you start talking about better educational outcomes, they become self-explanatory. Again, this is just more of me selling you on why personalized learning is important, why it's good for our students, why it's good for you as an educator, and there again, I'll give you a second to decipher a couple of those bullets. Again, if we look at it, you see goal setting jumps out again. When we start talking about kids having the capacity and the ability to be taught, basically they're just learning how to learn within their own element. And number 6 reinforces it as well. When you start talking about ownership of learning, 9 falls into being a self-directed learner and being able to manage your time and requirements as it relates to individual responsibilities. So all of this stuff we hear on an ongoing basis, and you will see that these are things that we do. Now it's just a matter of us communicating this and highlighting the fact that JROTC is actually doing these things in a value-added sense and continues to do them on an ongoing basis. So again, continuing with personalized learning, you remember the 3 components, personalized learning being the first component. And there again, why does it matter? We've seen all the benefits that were related to personalized learning. And more than anything else, we're actually preparing our students for the world that they live in, for the 21st century, and beyond. And to actually highlight the fact of what we're preparing them for. I listed on here the 2013 survey that was conducted by the National Association of College and Employers, and essentially what they were doing in that survey, they comprised, based on their research, a list of 10 skills that employers say that they were seeking in order of precedence. And just to highlight a couple of them, and you've heard these again before because they're all related to work readiness, those soft skills, and those things that we try and reinforce when we have kids do their skills maps. All of those things that point back to those essential leader skills, team building aspects, and being a complete and whole person ready to be productive in the workplace. But here's a couple of items from the list. We talk about the ability to work in a team. The ability to make decisions and solve problems, the ability to plan and organize and prioritize work. We're also talking about the ability to communicate verbally, with people inside and outside of the organization. And as we start the school year up again, and as we begin to plan for our leadership symposium on the 22nd of this month, you will see how all of these skills that these employers are seeking are really a lot of the skills that we're asking our cadets to display on an ongoing basis. And a lot of that will be projected, and we'll actually have an opportunity to observe that as part of the leadership symposium. But the list continues with the ability to analyze quantitative data, technical knowledge, having technical knowledge related to their particular job, whether that be a staff assignment, working as a first sergeant, company commander. Every job has responsibility, a scope of responsibility, requirements. Everything is connected to the overall vision and purpose and direction of the organization. It builds right back into the individual's purpose on the team. And then finally, ending all this, we start talking about the proficiency with softwares and computers. And this will actually lead us into the second portion when we talk about personalized learning plus technology. And then we'll talk about school design as we close out here in a second. But kids, we've got to meet them where they are in terms of dealing with technology. What I want to do on the the next couple of slides to sort of show you where we are now, and there again, still build some information in terms of why it's important and where we're headed and where we're headed. Now, excuse me. Now, this particular graph was actually pulled from a journal report, gathered by the U.S. Department of Labor. As you see it, and when you start looking at the graph here, working with new information and solving unstructured problems, that's been an increasing task for the workforce in terms of the economy for the last 40 years. While the routine manual cognitive task has sort of been going down at a gradual rate. This sort of gives you the visual in terms of the importance of skills as they relate to the workplace. Now, I included this slide primarily just to sort of review where we are in terms of a district, in terms of our 5-year strategic plan. Currently, we're right in the middle of our beginning year 4. But as each of our individual learning communities launch their initiatives, this slide sort of depicts the responsibilities and things that you may be hearing at our show level, and depending upon what cohort and what phase will actually dictate which phase your actual school is actually in. But this gets into the selection of the personal learning devices, as well as the school design specific strategies that they're going to use at your for your school-based application. But currently, right now, we're right in the middle of planning and development, as well as the school design as you look at 2014 over to 2014-15 and between 2015-17. And we do also have some cohorts that are in the process of device selection. And that's the one-to-one device that the district is actually supporting for personalized learning. But this just gives you a visual in terms of the actual movement of where the entire district is headed with personalized learning and the technology piece. Now, this slide we've all seen before. I just basically, I placed it on here primarily to highlight the fact that if you go to SharePoint on our team site, you can actually visit personalized learning. Here it captures some of the additional resources that you might want to tap into as well. But it also highlights the 7 principles and gives you some additional contact information if we need to extend beyond this. All right, I'm sort of sitting here by myself looking at this. So hopefully I'm not putting anybody to sleep, but I tell you, we'll take a break if we need to. I'll allow you guys to get down, beat your boots. You can do some push-ups or jumping jacks, whatever you need to do to stay awake. But yeah, we're about halfway through it right now. But what we're going to do now is sort of shift gears and move on to the technology piece. So if you think back to the equation that we initially started with in terms of the personalization equation, the first part being personalized learning, that piece we just covered. Second part being the technology foundations and tools, and that's where we are now, shifting into technology. And this slide provides you a graphic in terms of why technology is important, or in terms of the role of technology as it relates to personalized learning. Now, although there are unlimited ways that we can actually use technology, or we can come up with it, this is not an all-encompassing list in terms of roles, but these were the 3 major things that sort of jump out at you. So when you think about it in terms of feedback, proper feedback, that's critical, in terms of maintaining a favorable rate of learning, as well as persistence from the students to actually continue to pursue their learning. When you start talking about collaborative tool, an unlimited resource. As a matter of fact, as a ramp up, as we were doing our synchronization meetings with each of the programs, we were talking about all the different collaborative tools that are available out there. And if you think about, the possibilities of where we can actually take our students to in terms of them partnering not only with other programs within the district, but challenging other programs throughout the state, throughout the nation, and across the globe as it relates to legitimate problem solving at their level as it affects them. They've got that capability of doing that. Google Docs, being able to pull up a doc with multiple users working on it simultaneously. And we've got to take advantage of the technology and leverage it at every opportunity. They've got the capability of creating products well beyond what we could have ever dreamed of creating during our time as students. When you start thinking about their ability to be able to create and produce movies, place them on YouTube instantly. Write and publish a blog within real-time senses, as well as if they have the desire to publish a book, they could almost do it within a couple of days, with online platforms such as Amazon. But the bottom line here is that technology doesn't necessarily eliminate the teacher. It doesn't do away with the job. A lot of times when people think about technology eliminating requirements and things of that nature, but think about it in terms of how it actually enhances your role as a teacher, and it amplifies all of the things that you're actually working towards. Yeah, when we continue with technology here, you can say, how can it help? Some of these things we've already hit upon, but look at the bottom of the slide real quick. Those three bullets, the three buttons. That was exactly what I was talking to. Technology is not to eliminate the job or the role of the teacher. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution, or it doesn't. It's not the application, but it's actually the use of the application in terms of how we arrive at the outcome that is most important. But more than anything else, using technology and challenging our kids to use technology. The more we push them, to go beyond, it's going to increase their critical thought processes and deep thinking abilities. Yeah, this illustration might look a little familiar to you, but actually, when I look at it, it reminds me of my granddaughter. But one of the things, when we start thinking about technology and personalization of learning, if you look at all the different components that she's actually engaged in right now, I'm not sure what she's on a personal tablet there, but also on a smartphone. But then you look at, I'll give you a second to view this, but as you work your way around the screen, you look at all of the other collaborative platforms that she's actually connected to, whether that be some type of Yahoo support, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, as well as other search engines and research resources. I know when I came into the district, for a lot of different reasons, integrating technology and definitely, allowing students to use their own personal devices, has been an ongoing challenge as far as, districts and other folks building the capacity to be able to accept students and meet them where they are in terms of their actual learning application, in terms of how technology is impacting them individually. So I'm only saying that to say that we've actually grown, as educators in terms of how we view technology, how we accept it, as opposed to looking at it as being a distraction, which it can be, if not properly managed. But as opposed to primarily looking at it as a distractor, if we look at it more from the standpoint of how we can actually enhance and build the interest of students as it relates to their learning. So this slide just sort of gives you, you know, a few statistics as it relates to, you know, students, you know, how they're actually using technology within the schools to reinforce the learning process. Now, if you look at this graph, you actually see that it captures grade levels 3 to 5 all the way up to middle school to include high school. Now, as expected, you would expect high school students to have you know, a greater degree of usage and engagement with technology. But I also wanted to point out that you can see early engagement starting as early as the third grade, and this data was as of 2-3 years ago. But I will tell you that I would probably look for those year groups to actually encompass pre-K and kindergarten now as well, because as I said before, I know that even in my own house, my granddaughter is actually working with smart devices and applications. But look at the left-hand side of this particular chart, and and all the different applications that they use it for. You know, going to the bottom, that's one of the more familiar things that we actually allow them to use technology in the classroom for, you know, creating presentation, working on products and things of that nature. But even the use of a textbook, you know, all of the JROTC curriculum books, every text, every student learning plan that the kids are required to have is available to them through the JROTC portal. The cadet logs into the portal under as a cadet. The login provided. If you don't have that, I'll send it out again, but it's available for them. The only point I'm making there is they have access to all of the information. They have access to the learning plans. They have access to the curriculum. And we talked about meeting kids where they are and them having the ability to do it. And now they don't have to come to class because they can issue books as well. Well, they have to come to class, but not only with the expectation that that's the only place that they're going to have exposure to the information. And so really our job is getting back and honing in on that personal accountability and that ownership of the learning process, because they actually own it. And if we focus on it from that standpoint, I think it'll make the learning process a lot more enjoyable, not only for the student, but also for the teacher as well. You know, this slide I just sort of captured and included these statistics because it shows you where parents are in terms of supporting their students for using devices in the school as well. 62% would be willing to buy and support their child's endeavors with a smart device. You know, as well as you look on the left-hand side there, that is a pretty big statistic as well. Nearly 6% of 6 to 12th graders have devices and want to use their own devices in the classroom. And I know that a lot of school districts have made adjustments since a lot of these statistics have been posted, but we should always be looking for creative ways that we can integrate the devices and just to empower the students to even take the learning to another level. So that was the big reason I wanted to highlight that, because the interest is there, the support's there. We've just got to figure out ways to strategize and bring it all together. Now, what I had initially had planned, but I won't back out because I don't want technology. I've already had one setback from technology this morning. But what I'll do as we get to the end of the slide, we're going to back out and then we're going to go ahead and look at some of the technology platforms that we have available to ourselves. Now, as I said before, we already talked about a couple during our synchronization meetings, but particularly I want to go back out and show you some of the things on 365. And then talk about some of the possible applications we have there under OneNote and Yammer and some of the other things that we have available there under 365. But this is the final component of the personalization equation. And it gets back into whole school design. And if you say, why, or what is the role of school design? As I mentioned before, each individual learning community is in the process of, identifying their strategy, selecting devices and things of that nature. But there again, focusing on the particular needs of their community and the individual needs of their students. So no matter what teaching methods or standards or whatever the technology processes are that we're looking at, without a coherent strategy, the bottom line what we're actually getting at is that it's just like anything else without a plan. Basically, you're going to have inconsistent and highly unpredictable performance. So we're looking at increasing performance, increasing student achievement, by enhancing their learning and basically adding to the predictable aspect of their learning. And if we look at it from these 5 components, you think about it from a strategy standpoint. There again, during our synchronization meetings, we talked about the district's vision. We talked about the vision and the focus of the DAI shop as it relates to your individual programs. But we have to go back, and even with the students, we have to confirm the vision and make sure that it's focused on the desired outcome. That has to be communicated up front and clearly without any questions. And secondly, when we look at the actual school level design, this is getting into the actual particulars of the eaches and things of that nature. Everything from bell schedules to classroom design to what type of assessments across the board or and instructional models are you going to follow. Curriculum and instruction. There again, we talked about this earlier. This encompasses not only online but offline content as well. We talk about targeted student learning plans. We have the capability, and it's an expectation that every cadet enrolled in JROTC will receive a student learning plan in addition to their curriculum text. And without any question, this gives us the ability to express standards and expectations up front in advance of any instruction and put in place an appropriate monitoring tools so we can monitor the progress and development of the students as they progress towards mastery. But when we talk about support, that is actually an ongoing requirement, whether that be for teachers or school-based support, other resources that are required for instructional aspects. And then from an operational standpoint, that's really taking into consideration everything that's needed to get the mission done. We get into the dollars, maintenance, staffing, personnel requirements, and things of that nature. But as you can see, so when you get into school design, it's all encompassing. But the aspect that we sort of zero in on as individual educators, as we understand the strategy and the vision, once the school design has been decided upon, we have the curriculum and the instruction. Then it gets into what is the manner that we're going to go about personalizing the learning process within our individual classrooms. Again, we talk about why design is so important. Earlier I talked about meeting the specific needs of each individual community as well as the individual needs of the students. But more than anything else, we talk about the fact that more research has pointed to the fact that the longer that students stay in school and we stick to that traditional model, the less engaged they are. And the focus here is that if we increase engagement with the use of technology, with various blending techniques, uh, then we can actually increase engagement, which will also lead to improved educational outcomes. That's the bottom line. So, in terms of design, I'm not really going to get into any specific designs, but I want to talk about, a method. A lot of this, again, we're already doing now. It's just a matter of putting it in the context of the semantics and the framework that the Fulton County School District has ongoing. So now I'll give you a second. You may have heard of blended learning, as a technique for personalizing education or personalizing learning. But look at some of the components here when you start talking about peer-to-peer coaching. We do that on an ongoing basis in our leadership labs. Whether that be a squad leader, checking portfolio requirements, ensuring that cadets are prepared for the next level of promotion, ensuring that the uniforms are squared away, checking on their personal goals, see how they're progressing. Not only in terms of personal goals, whether they relate to fitness or wellness, anything of that nature, but also importantly in terms of their educational goals. All of this is related to teamwork. And there again, everything is focused on mastery. So as we work our way around this slide here, project-based learning. Project-based learning, does that ring a bell when we talk about service learning? When we start talking about, setting goals and, strategies and action plans for actually achieving that goal, and then deriving some type of learning outcome as part of the process. And as we continue around, you see that doesn't eliminate the requirement that there are some requirements for direct instruction. But in most cases, it can be a combination of direct instruction, but we try and keep that to a minimum, combined with several aspects of the following. Again, this slide is just to give you a little bit more understanding of student-centered or blended learning. A lot of this we have ongoing. Sometimes if you think back to the middle school or elementary schools, when you start thinking about the stations and rotations, no different than high school if we were to create individual learning centers and to have ongoing multiple learning activities, to meet kids where they are, to either accelerate them or to remediate, or to get them on pace to ensure that everybody is learning at an acceptable rate. Again, this is more to reinforce the fact that we're doing great things in JROTC. If you consider the components of the blended learning activity, everything from content. We talked earlier about standards being given up front in terms of student learning plans, and then kids having access to all of the curriculum materials. The assessments, as we continue to work within our professional learning community as JROTC, I see the individual learning teams, whether that be for LET 1 or all the way through LET 4, but coming together and identifying what those critical assessment requirements are, and in instances where we can actually do it, the more opportunities that we have and the more that we develop common assessments, the better it will be for collaboration and also strengthening standards across the district. Portfolios, self-explanatory. We continue to do those, and we understand why we do it. Provides a platform, record of performance where we can actually readily monitor and provide feedback to cadets on their individual development. And then the collaboration piece. This is where we are now in terms of pushing far ahead with this. We have all of these platforms that are available to us. Twitter, Skype, Yammer, Facebook, You can go on and on when we start talking about messaging devices, when you get into the smartphones, the online chatting, discussion boards, things of that nature. We've got the capability of doing a lot of great things. We've just got to make sure we're willing to step up to the challenge and push our kids to the next level. They're willing to do it. We've just got to be willing to challenge them. So I'm asking for your help there to meet us there, but that's where my big push is going to be this year in terms of collaboration, encouraging the kids to use the cameras, reaching out to the sister battalions, other units across the state, all of it focused on continuous improvement and just getting better as a unit. There again, I'll let you look at this illustration, but this just gives you another idea of the blended learning concept. Again, another way of looking at it, just another illustration. But we talked about this, and we do this all the time anyway. If you think back to, a lot of our developmental training requirements that we had when we were, in the military. You look at the rotation model, rotating from one station to another, or even when they had the leadership lab. Rotation to different stations that focus on specific tasks to reinforce individual skills. And then you've got the other different variations as you go to the opposite ends of the spectrum, where you look at the flex model, self-led model, and the enriched virtual model. So that's when you're getting into the other aspects of the curriculum, where I encourage you to have your cadets use the JROTC distance learning. That is a site that has invaluable information. It will also reinforce their 21st century competencies in terms of dealing with technology and being able to research and perform a lot of those online tasks that they'll have to do once they're out of school, and in many cases that they're having to do right now while in school. There again, just more illustrations to show you how encompassing the personalized learning can be. Everything from the platform, the hardwares, to the individual softwares that actually reinforce and support the process. But if you think about this entire process as you look at that slide there, and think about what it is that the JROTC program is aiming to do. The intent is to engage cadets, in active learning. So we want learning-centered activities, to dominate our cadet learning experiences. And at all steps along the way, we want to ensure that we're encouraging them and allowing them the opportunity to continuously engage in each phase of the learning process. And whether that be inquire, gather, process, or apply, it's a continuous learning process. Learning from mistakes, building on mistakes, and continuing to extend that knowledge. And there again, you can do this through peer collaborations, peer teaching, group discussions, interactions, hands-on activities that we do in our labs, controlling the squad, issuing instructions, controlling and directing a formation, and all the other activities that allow for active learning that keep our kids engaged. There again, this slide again highlights much of the stuff that we've already discussed. Just another way of looking at it. I thought it was sort of neat. We think about it in terms of drivers, but definitely gives you some additional meat in terms of discussion points, not only with other educators, but also with all of the other stakeholders in terms of our students and their parents. Why this blended learning, why personalization of education is important, and as well as the benefits. And so what it really gets back to the point, and then this slide sort of says it all, when we get back to thinking about that equation that I started out this presentation with, basically we're looking at networking the learning experience of each individual student. As you look at this this illustration here, it does a great job of capturing all those different aspects of what we've been talking about. Everything from the social media networks to hardware, software support, curriculum documents, being able to conference and collaborate with their peers, not only their colleagues, sharing on the various video and photo platforms, but this gives you an understanding of the personalized process under a blended approach. There again, just another graphic to give you an idea of where we're actually headed when we start talking about personalized learning. Basically, we're looking at establishing individual learning networks for each student, because they're going to get their knowledge from or be able to build their knowledge from several different sources, whether that be within the learning community, on or offline content information, things that interest them or things that they want to do to enhance their learning. They'll be able to gather that information and data from other sources, as well as the interaction with their peers. So you can see how all these different components come together to make it their personal learning network. There again, all of this focused on the three primary goals of the district as we refer back to the 5-year strategic plan. When we start talking about building our future, we always want to keep these up front, make sure we're reviewing them on a regular basis, and also sharing them with our students, challenging them to set individual goals within the context and the framework of these goals, so it shows them how they're doing their individual part to make sure that they're meeting their ownership and responsibility to help meet this collective goal as a district. Now, we're winding down here. So when we start talking about the road ahead, this picture that you see on the slide there, that was just something that it probably looks like a lot of your classrooms. But, when we start talking about the media devices, small group work and things of that nature. But, the three circle, the data on the right-hand side there, that encapsulates it all. When we start talking about the road ahead, what we're wanting to do. We want to make sure that as educators, we understand collaboration, how to exploit the various learning platforms, as well as software and all of the technologies that are available to reinforce and enhance that. We want to make sure that we understand how to expose our students to it so that they can benefit from it as well. And that goes into the second bullet when we start talking about experiencing collaboration. They're not going to experience it unless we challenge them to experience it, unless we create the opportunity, by giving them the resources, allowing them to use the computers, allowing them to use the video conferencing cameras that we've purchased for each program. We've got to do our part to ensure that they have the opportunity to experience collaboration. And then all of that, understanding, creating opportunities, will lead to implementation. And that's where we want to be. We want to make sure that we're fully implementing the JROTC curriculum in the manner that it's designed, and will be parallel with all the expectations that Fulton County has in terms of operating within its competency-based framework for personalized learning. And we got to my last slide. So you probably wonder where I got a lot of that information, but these are the sources that I gleaned to get some of this information out of. As a matter of fact, you may be hearing a lot of it again because this information was actually shared with us at the Building Our Future workshop last week. So this is real-time information, real text that each administrator that was at the conference actually received. So everybody had a copy of it. So I use these two primary references for real-time support of this presentation. So I'm going to actually put this presentation on SharePoint. It's actually recording now. This is my first opportunity to work with Hangouts on air. So as we continue to progress, we'll continue to integrate some of the other bells and whistles, such as the question and answers in advance, questions that we can do during the session, being able to poll one another. But that'll be all part of our learning process as well as we continue to learn how to exploit this technology even more. But what I wanted to close out here with for a second is to actually go back in and what we're going to do is come to the as we come on to 365, what we're actually going to look at now are some of the other different aspects that are out there. Now, as you look across the top, when we come to the application window up here, I think some people have actually called this the waffle button or whatever you want to call it. But this actually exposes us to all the different applications and platform that we have on the 365. A couple of the most common applications that we use are the email. One of the things, one of our goals has been to actually reduce our email by capitalizing on a lot of the other sharing platforms, such as OneNote, Google Drive, to have shared folders that will reduce in transmission requirements. Also, the shared calendar, we talked about that during our synchronization meeting. And so we understand that the need and the requirement to be able to highlight the major muscle movements of each program. Excuse me. So that other programs can have that visibility to what they choose to be able to support you or to ensure that they're not in conflict and competing with you when you're actually trying to plan all of your individual events and things of that nature. But as we continue across, you see Yammer. And this is something that's come out, but this is just another collaboration tool that's out there available to all of us. And then what I'm going to do, I'm only going to touch on each one of these buttons. I'm not going to go through each one of these things in detail. But Yammer, just like all of the other collaboration platforms, it pretty much works the same way in terms of building groups, being able to post notifications, and work collaboration that way. You also have the capability of conducting webinars and group video conferences through Yammer as well. That's something I'm not proficient on. It's something that I'm going to have to get better on. But again, the resources that I'll be sharing with you later on will actually point you back to it. Has all the step-by-step guides. But in most cases, if we're using Google Plus, if we've been on Skype, most of these collaboration platforms work the same way. The only restriction with the Yammer piece, as I mentioned to you guys before, is that, as part of our intranet system, and if we're trying to collaborate with anybody outside of Fulton County for the obvious reasons, they would not be able to access it. If we get over to OneDrive, that's the next application that I want to share with you. OneDrive works just like Google Drive. They're getting the restrictions being the sharing side of it with sometimes our partners that we work with outside of the district. But they're, again, a great tool to do collaboration, whether our cadets or whether we're working together as cadre on SOP, memorandums, or other documents. It allows multiple users to do simultaneous collaboration and adjustments on documents. So great resource, great way to, as you can see, one of the documents that we have out here that I've shared out with everybody. They're, again, big on pushing information and making sure that everybody's got access to it. We share it out in so many different places, whether that be on SharePoint. Here you see it on OneDrive. We've got it on Google Drive. So if we're going through this, process to push information down, we've got to make sure that we're doing our parts on the school, that this information is being pushed down to every cadet within the organization within the same fashion. Because it's the same old adage as we've heard before, no different than when we were on active duty. An informed soldier is a good soldier, and he's going to be able to perform better. So no different here. We just want to make sure they've got the information, be able to use it as they need it. Here's the one last one that I was going to touch on here, and more to follow on that, is the class notebook. Now, I was actually exposed to this last week, but really haven't had the opportunity to go back in and pull out some of the information. But what I'll do later on is try and plan a individual webinar session specifically focused on the OneNote class book. But I think as you look at this, or if you've got some exposure to it, even after the day, I'll send out a link where you can actually go out and look at a couple of self-help videos on this. But you'll see this is probably one of the greatest resources, or one of the greatest tools that are out here now, because when we start talking about sharing requirements, class requirements, notebooks, things of that nature, you have basically the capability of doing a digital portfolio, a digital notebook for each one of your students. Basically copying your student learning plans back into this document, however you decide to exploit it. But more to follow. It's just got some exciting capabilities that should enhance the learning process for our students. But I won't go into that any further, but I just wanted to sort of touch on the 365 applications that were available to us that would also support the technology side of that personalization of the learning process. We just got to make sure that we are aware and that we are actually using the resources that are available to help us do our job better as educators. Now, I'm still learning. That actually concludes the information that I wanted to share with you guys. And I know that we still have some folks that are out there. But what I want to do is stop screen share and come back in on my camera here real quick for a second. And see if we can open it up for question and answers if anybody has any question and answers. All right, doesn't look like anybody's being polled right now. Like I said, I know we had some competing requirements today. Folks that are out in other sessions doing things at their school-based programs. So that actually concludes my portion of what I wanted to share with you today. JROTC, an overview of how our curriculum and our programs relate to personalized learning process. And again, this is actually being recorded, and it'll actually be there for historical purposes. So you and your cadre can refer back to it at any time to support your needs. Thank you guys for attending and participating.